Returning to my Coin Lady channel, I am pleased to see you again. I made a video yesterday about how the US government might essentially seize Ripple's XRP and put it into a digital asset hoard. As you may or may not have heard, Trump recently signed an executive order creating a Bitcoin strategic reserve, and a digital asset stockpile, XRP, is likely to be one of these assets. Furthermore, I mentioned in yesterday's video that the SEC cannot choose to overturn Judge Torres' decision in the SEC v. Ripple case, correct? Because obviously, the point is that they will pay the $125 million fine, but with XRP, correct? Yes, that is the plan. The Supreme Court and Ripple are both unable to overturn Judge Torres' ruling in the Supreme Court v. Ripple case. Additionally, the SEC and Ripple cannot come to a consensus on any currency other than US dollars to pay their $125 million penalty. Simply deciding to pay with XRP won't be enough for them, so a lot of behind-the-scenes work would have to go on if something like that were to happen, likely including the courts and maybe even other members of the current government. Even if Ripple were to pay a penalty in XRP instead of USD, it couldn't be transferred to the newly created digital asset reserve, as I mentioned in that video. Since the United States Treasury must receive penalties paid in US dollars per current law. Again, this means that some major heavy lifting would have to happen if the US Treasury were to receive XRP instead of dollars. Doing so would have implications, including, but not limited to, a $125 million reduction in the US Treasury. Consider the consequences. Those monies would be permanently locked up in a digital asset stockpile as XRP, never to be spent on anything else. So, it's best not to do that. Am I correct? You know, a couple of XRP community attorneys have recently theorized that the SEC/Ripple appeal and cross-appeal haven't gone away, because Ripple is actually the one holding up the process, not the SEC. So, what gives Ripple the right to impede this procedure? Well, to be honest, it's because we've entered a new era when no US government entity is opposed to cryptocurrency. As a result, the government is completely dependent on Ripple. The crypto litigation, appeals, and investigations are something they would like to see end once and for all. The government wants that, doesn't it? Ripple has the ability to be picky about this, doesn't it? The government would prefer that all crypto litigation and related matters cease immediately, barring instances of genuine fraud, for the obvious reason that. On top of that, there's the reasonable assumption that Ripple is attempting to have their penalty lowered. Since $125 is a substantial sum, it is reasonable to assume that people are attempting to resolve this matter behind the scenes. It is reasonable to assume that Ripple is making covert efforts to have the punishment decreased or removed altogether. Of all, they can't solve the problem using the SEC alone. I won't bore you with the details, because I've already addressed how complicated it is in prior videos, but you should know that these things are important to think about. For these and other reasons, these being among the most important, although there are more, I have expressed my doubt that any of these things will actually occur. Unbelievable things can happen, of course, in the presence of sufficient political resolve. Even if drastic changes take place, it doesn't rule out the possibility that it may happen. It is patently impossible for these things to occur under the current rules and systems, as I made clear in my film. For the time being, that is the situation. Since many of the online discussions I read suggested that people were just unaware of important facts, I made sure to point this out in great detail. Everyone was simply chatting about these ideas, which is entertaining in and of itself, but I feel like a lot of people missed the obstacles that were already there. To be honest, I'm a little dubious about this, and I'm aware that Ripple would prefer to pay $0, and if all sorts of crazy, unusual things occurred, that would be fantastic. Another thing that came to me recently, related to the video I made the other day, is that there is a possibility, given that Ripple already invests in marketing, that they would be willing to set aside some XRP for digital storage in order to spread the word and demonstrate that XRP is official government currency in the US. Perhaps there's a monetary value to that. However, would $125 million be a fair price? It seems to me that the answer is obviously no. It might be a little excessive. With a cheaper amount, you might receive the identical confirmation and headlines. For this reason, Ripple would likely only be content to deposit a somewhat lower sum into a reserve. At least the government would own that much XRP, if they could figure out a way to make it XRP instead of dollars. I'm sure they'd be just as happy with a Ripple as with dollars. So, I'd wager that if given the choice between becoming dollars or XRP, they would choose the latter. In any case, that's my assumption. Do they still intend for it to be less than $25 million when using XRP? No, I don't think so. Those are a few of the key things I wanted to emphasize in my film. Now we have attorney Jeremy Hogan, who believes that something along these lines could happen, at least in theory. But how probable he thinks this is to happen is not apparent. It's not certain. As you'll see, he's actually quoting attorney Hogan and referencing a case law decision from 1869, which you know when he says it. I will demonstrate everything to you right now. However, as you can see from his comment, the concept of US legal tender was not as solid as it is now. End quote. It's acceptable to say that, yet it's intriguing and gives you something to think about. So, this is the post that attorney Jeremy Hogan published. I'm going to give this a cursory glance, before relaying attorney Hogan's full analysis of the situation. This is from Yasin Mobark, a member of the XRP community. Around 468,400 people have read this post so far while I'm filming this video. In the event that it goes viral, at least among XRP users, it's a substantial sum. Anyway, his writing is shown here. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission fined Ripple Labs $125 million for the fraudulent sale of its XRP currencies. Ripple asked for a hold and suggested putting the $125 million in an escrow account to handle this payment. The SEC gave its assent to the plan, and the money was put aside in an escrow agreement that the court had approved. The fine was set in US dollars. Nonetheless, it is unclear from the accessible sources if the escrow funds were held in USD or XRP tokens. It seems to me that it is reasonable to assume that the escrow was held in US dollars, since no one has ever mentioned anything other than dollars in relation to this matter. Additionally, this occurred during the tenure of the Biden administration, widely regarded as the most crypto-averse administration in history. The SEC was very anti-crypto, as you well know. Do you believe they will ultimately decide to accept the XRP tokens after going to all this trouble? Would escrow be an option for them? That is incorrect. The likelihood is close to zero. The answer is no, although it would amaze me if the escrow was an XRP token. Seeing my video is an honor. Bye for now, and please subscribe and like my channel.